WHGE 95.3 FM coming up, the Open Eye. Hey, good morning, Sherry. How you doing? All right.
Those of us that indulge in or commit intellectual violence don't do so for the pleasure of mental masturbation or ego diddling. We do so because
all right, Brother Vaughn, I see you there.
People's minds are deep and difficult to remove.
Good morning, my children of the sun. Welcome to the Open Eye on WHGE 95.3 FM. Yes, indeed, ready to get that third eye open. Welcome to the show. Every generation has its purpose. Ours is to reveal the truth and reverse the brainwashing. And that's what we do here on the Open Eye. Hey, Tracy, I see you, sister. All right. We lost a giant the other day. Oscar-winning actor Louis Gossett Jr. The acclaimed actor was the first black man to win an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor, was working well into his 80s. Lou Gossett Jr., Oscar and Emmy-winning actor who embodied a variety of characters in a career that spanned more than 5 decades. He died Thursday at the age of 88. Hey, Steve. The legendary actor appeared in more than 50 films. And I'm not sure what that is. Okay. The legendary actor appeared in more than 50 films and hundreds of television shows. I first remember seeing him on Good Times. I think he played Florida's cousin or brother or something like that. He garnered respect and acclaim along the way for roles such as Fiddler in the television miniseries Roots. And he played Sergeant Emil Foley in the film An Officer and a Gentleman, and that was his Oscar-winning role. He was a native of New York City, born May 27th, 1936. His Coney Island neighborhood in New York's Brooklyn borough was home to other prominent artists, including Harvey Keitel, Neil Simon, and Arthur Miller. Acting came early, but it wasn't Gossett's first interest. He attended Abraham Lincoln High School, where he first focused on basketball. An injury that left him sidelined led him to take an acting class, and we're pretty glad he did. Following high school, he chose to attend New York University, which offered him a basketball and drama scholarship. He actually tried out for the New York Knicks. In 1961, he landed a pivotal role in the Broadway production and subsequent film adaptation of A Raisin in the Sun. He also appeared in the original cast of Jean Genet's The Blacks. It would become the longest-running off-Broadway play of the decade. James Earl Jones, Roscoe Lee Brown, Cicely Tyson, Godfrey Cambridge, Maya Angelou, and Charles Grodin were among his castmates. And of course, he played in Roots, numerous TV shows. He played in The Landlord, Good Times, Don't Look Back. The story of Leroy Satchel Paige. I'm going to have to find that because Satchel Paige was my man. He played in the Josephine Baker story, Lackawanna Blues. If you haven't seen that, do. And The Watchmen in 2019. In 1977, he won an Emmy Award for Outstanding Lead Actor in a Drama or Comedy Series for his portrayal of Fiddler. Yes, indeed. And so he was still in demand at the age of 88. Lou Gossett Jr., a giant, one hell of an entertainer. WHGE 95.3 FM, get my disclaimer out the way. All right.
The views and opinions.
Hey, Brother Haruga. Brother Jade.
And
See you there.
And do not reflect the policy or position of WHGE 95.3 FM, nor our sponsor, the Delaware Center for Homeless Vets. Any content provided by Open Eyes hosts, guests, or contributors are theirs and are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, company, or individual.
WHGE 95.3 FM. You are enjoying the Open Eye. Of course, we always open up with some history and talk about history and what have you. And I'm sure many of you have heard about this because you're so, in one of a better word, woke, aware. You know, the Dogon people of West Africa possess a complex knowledge of astronomy. The astronomer priests of the Dogon have for centuries, it seems, a very modern view of our solar system and of the universe. They knew also things far in advance of their time, intricate details about a star which no one can see except with the most powerful telescopes. They not only saw it, they observed it, its mass and nature. They plotted its orbit almost up until the year 2000. And they did all this between 500 and 700 years ago. Okay, actually, the Dogon, if you follow the migrations after the fall of Egypt, you know that the Dogon were actually the priests of Egypt. It's from Kaba Kamin. I had some misgivings about the brother, but he hit this right on the head. As we begin to look at who we are as a people, as we look into the contributions of African people to the world, Dr. John Henry Clarke often told us that the missing pages of history is African history. And once you understand the role that Africa has played in the shaping of our intellectual world, in terms of the things we have achieved as a people, you will begin to understand why there is a war on history, specifically our history. And when you deal with a war on history, you're doing more than that. What you have to do is understand and look at the work of Dr. Cheikh Anta Diop, the brilliant Senegalese scholar who wrote a book, The African Origins, Myth or Reality, Civilization or Barbarism, the Cultural Unity of Black Africa. And as he developed his understanding, he said that for people to oppress another people, now this has nothing to do with African culture or European culture, this is people to people. If you want to oppress a people, there are three things you take from them. You take their history, you take their language, and you take their psychological factor. The psychological factor are what we call VIPs. Dr. Leonard Jeffries called them the values, the interests, and the principles of a people. Take those from them. Take their history, take their language, take their values, interests, and principles, and then superimpose your history, your language, your values, history, and principles on them. And no matter what conclusion they come to and the challenge they face, they will always act in the interest of the oppressor that took their history, language, values, interests, and principles. So when we wonder why the choices we make never serve our best interests, you have to change the paradigm. You have to study your history. You have to study your language, your values, interests, and principles. And that's why you tune in to The Open Eye. I'm Patrice Gibbs, WHGE 95.3 FM, The Open Eye. Where we at here? There we go. All right. right, all right. Hey, Cousin Sin, I see you there. WHGE 95.3 FM, The Open Eye. I'm Patrice Gibbs, your host and third eye optometrist, waking you up. You know, it's something, I mentioned the war on history. And one of the things that come out of that is the falsehood about slavery. Okay? What is it? What do they call them now? They're the same as the Daughters of Liberty. Whatever this group is that's going around trying to get books off the shelves and don't want nobody to talk about the history and what have you. And yeah, that's it. The Moms of Liberty. That's their name. Their forerunner were the Daughters of the Confederacy, who really put out this false history about how well slaves were treated and how many of the plantation owners saw their slaves as family and what have you. Well, let me give you the real deal on that. And this is from a woman that was recorded in, I think, the 1930s, okay? And she talked about what it was like to be on a plantation. She was a slave. She said, I never had no white folks that was good to me. So much for that benevolent plantation owner, huh? We all worked just like dogs and had about half enough to eat and got whooped for everything. Our days was a constant misery to us. My old master was Dave Giles, the meanest man that ever lived. He didn't have many slaves, my mammy and me and my sister, Uncle Bill, and Truman. He had owned my grandma, but he gave her a bad whooping and she never did get over it and died. A benevolent slave owner, huh? We all done as much work as a dozen N-words. And we know we had to. I seen old master get mad at Truman and he buckled him down and across a barrel and whooped him until he cut the blood out of him, and then he rubbed salt and pepper in the raw places. It looked like Truman would die. It hurt so bad. I know that doesn't sound reasonable that a white man in a Christian community would do such a thing, but you can't realize how heartless he was. And the same people that gave us Christianity, remember? People didn't know about it, and we doesn't tell them, for we know he'd kill us if we did. You must remember, he owned us, body and soul. And there wasn't anything we could do about it. Old mistress and her 3 girls was mean to us too. One time, me and my sister was spinning, and old mistress went to the well house and she found a chicken snake and killed it. She brought it back and she throwed it around my sister's neck. She just laughed and laughed about it. She thought it was a big joke. Old master stayed drunk all the time. I reckon that is the reason he was so fetching mean. My, how we hated him. He finally killed himself drinking, and I remember old mistress called us in and to look at him in his coffin. We all marched by him slow like, and I just happened to look up and caught my sister's eye, and we both just naturally laughed. Why shouldn't we? We was glad he was dead. It was a good thing we had our laugh, for old mistress took us out and whooped us with a broomstick. She didn't make us sorry, though. I was Ann Hawkins, formerly enslaved African who was sold from Georgia to Texas. This interview was done in Colbert, Oklahoma, where her and her family moved after emancipation. The interview conducted in the spring of 1937 with a date stamp of August 16, 1937. Miss Hawkins was 90 years old at the time of the interview, and what she relates occurred in Texas. And the source is the Library of Congress, WHGE 95.3 FM, The Open Eye. This is The Open Eye, your host, Patrice Gibbs, your third eye optometrist. Yeah. You know, it's something, come over here a little bit, okay, to justify slavery. Whites portray blacks as subhuman, primitive, stupid, and servile. Yeah. To justify segregation, whites portray blacks as morally corrupt, ignorant, predatory, and sinful. A lot of goddamn nerve. After civil rights, whites portrayed blacks as evil, drug addicts, gangbangers, and welfare queens. Make America great again. Because there has never been a point in our history when whites have not systematically and institutionally oppress black people. Never have they valued our lives. That's where Black Lives Matter came from. You notice there's more pressure on black people to stop talking about race than there is for racists to stop being racist. See, systematically, they don't want racism to end. They just want us to shut up about it, so they can keep doing racist crap to us. You know, if you allow people to mistreat you without complaining about it, they'll think that that's the way you're supposed to be treated. As the old saying goes, you teach people how to treat you. We need to learn that. We need to learn that. I've heard people say, you know, sometimes you take race too hard. Let me tell you something. A racist does something racist to me or around me once. Once. They never do it again. Because the first time you do it, I go from 0 to 150. Just like that. Because I'm not taking that crap. And you know, it's something that I get called down sometimes by my own people. Yo, man, you know, sometimes you just got to let it go. No. I never let it go. And I tell you, what's part of this foolishness is that even some of our people, is that poor whites have been conned for centuries into voting against their own interests. They don't vote about their economic condition. They vote on their emotion. You know, I have more for you. And that's how we get where we are. So look at the economy, okay? You know the average rent is about $2,000 a month. $1,500 to $2,000 a month. And to rent an apartment, you need to make 3 times that amount. That's $6,000 a month. What's that? $72,000 a year. But the average salary is $50,000 or below. Okay, the math ain't mathing, is it? No. You know, Brother Dardea, what's this now? He says, if I can get that all in there. Okay, I want to get this to the people. On reciprocity. For too long, we were told that it is better to give than receive. This is incomplete. Giving and receiving must be of equal value. To give and not receive would mean that our resources become depleted and thus we suffer. This not only holds true for our resources, it holds true in all aspects of life. For example, to give someone your trust without that trust being returned puts you and those you love in a dangerously vulnerable position. That's from the Virtues of Maya. Thank you, Brother Jadea. You know, a nation run by bankers will always be in debt. A government run by warmongers will never know peace. And if these elements run the media, we'll never know the truth. Yeah. $2,000 a month. A friend of mine just came back from California. Told me about what was formerly, Skid Row. Now, California has tent cities where people who can't afford to be housed live in these tent communities. Yet our Congress passes laws that subsidize corporations, farms, oil companies, airlines, and houses for suburbia. But when they turn their attention to the poor, they suddenly become concerned with balancing the budget. They know nothing about balance. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's something we put up with these banksters, these corporations, our Congress that has sold out. Corporations are not concerned with the common good. They exploit, pollute, impoverish, repress, kill, and lie to make money. They kill? Are you kidding? What was it, the whistleblower from Boeing? They just found him, I talked about it last week, found him shot in the head in his car. He was getting ready to testify against the corporation. Yes. They will throw poor people out of their homes, let the uninsured die, wage useless wars for profit, poison and pollute the ecosystem, slash social assistance programs, gut public education. Oh yeah, I told you last week, America ranks 150th in reading or somewhere around there. Fools still running around talking about the greatest country. Are you kidding? They have trashed the global economy a couple of times, plundered the U.S. Treasury, and crushed all popular movements that seek justice for working people. They worship money and power. And you got poor people that worship people because they're rich. And I ain't leaving you out. I heard so many people say, well, Donald Trump was a great businessman. No, he wasn't. No, he wasn't. He was a con man. Or he is a con man that smells of unchanged diapers. How's the rest of the world see us? Well, Paul F. Hacker from Canada said, here in Canada, many of us believe we are witnessing the fall of the U.S. empire. Would a civilized country limit health care or food assistance for the poor, leave crops rotting in the field, and destroy the educational system? Target women and attempt to eliminate their reproductive rights while refusing to help resulting babies? Abuse desperate immigrants, pretend to believe in Christianity while perverting and debasing its tenets, and refuse to protect the earth from destruction. The world is watching as the American empire implodes. This is the Open Eye, WHGE 95.3 FM. WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye. Yeah, we get ready to get rough. I'm sure by now everyone has heard of the tragedy that happened with the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore. Okay. Yes, it was a tragedy, and of course, conspiracy theories are popping up and what have you. I heard one person say it was just retaliation from Russia for something that happened over there, and, you know. Okay. Okay. After a cargo ship ran into the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore on March 26th and caused its collapse, internet trolls took to Twitter, or X, or whatever the hell it's called, to spout racist rhetoric against the city's black mayor, Brandon M. Scott. Yeah, according to WLBT News, the cargo ship Dolly was traveling at a rapid speed when a mayday call was issued by the crew, noting that they lost power minutes before the crash. The ship reportedly weighed more than 95,000 tons and sent the construction crew into the water as the bridge collapsed upon impact. At least 6 construction workers who had been working on the bridge are presumed dead. I think they found 2 of them. Despite the tragedy, social media trolls took to X to rant about the city's black mayor and DEI. Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion initiatives. DEI refers to the representation of people from different backgrounds, races, genders, sexual orientations, disabilities, and religions, and guidelines on those used by corporations and other institutions to ensure equality. Scott was elected in the majority black city of Baltimore, so DEI does not apply in his case. However, that didn't stop racists from flooding X with racist rhetoric following the crash. Okay? Now, who is Brandon Scott, young black man? Brandon M. Scott is the 52nd mayor of Baltimore. At the age of 27, he was one of the youngest people ever elected to the Baltimore City Council. Scott is working to end gun violence in Baltimore, restore the public's trust in government, and hopes to change Baltimore for the better. I think he's like 40 years old now. Okay. Scott believes that violence is a public health issue and has led legislation that created comprehensive crime data sharing and online reporting of crimes by the city's police department. The mayor is also a lifelong resident of Baltimore. And he won, when he ran for mayor, he won by 70%. In a city that's 61% black. Okay? 61% black, so that means some 9% of the voters were other than black. All right? If a white man had won, that would have been DEI. Many racist internet trolls blame the bridge collapse on DEI and woke ideology. The ship ran into the boat, and they saying it was because of diversity, equity, and inclusion. One user posted a diagram with the N-word along with the words CRT, woke, and DEI, and claimed N-words control the political cycle. Several ex-users also condemned Mayor Scott for wearing a Letterman jacket with the city of Baltimore logo while speaking to the press about the tragedy at an early morning press conference, and implied that he wasn't properly dressed. Okay, it was late night. There was an emergency. He had to jump up and get out there. So he should have stopped and put on a suit and tie and got all sharp and nicely dressed before he went before the press. They've done everything from call him the DEI mayor to a drug dealer and trash. Vote ghetto and trash wrote one response to Scott Letterman's jacket. It looks like the kind of guy who would try to bum a cigarette from the outside the gas station. This is what these fools are putting out there. You know, now several ex-users pushed back against the troll, and one noted that racism is so ingrained in the views of conservatives that they blame black people and other minorities for all society's problems. Their obsession with DEI is nothing more than a euphemism for their white victimhood. That's one of the amazing things, that whites want to be, these racist whites want to be victims so bad, where they are the primary beneficiaries of affirmative action. Sister Sherry said, we stay living in their minds. You got that right. You have to wonder about that. Why do we live rent-free in white people's minds so much? It's called fear and ignorance. They are uncomfortable with a young black man being in charge. That's what one Twitter user or ex-user replied. No one's going to come to a disaster area with a suit on, especially in the middle of the night. Another replied, DEI is now a racial slur. What have we learned? A word is less important than the intention behind it. As a result, white people will always find a new way to cause DEIs. One ex-user aptly noted that Maryland has a black governor, Democrat Wes Moore, a black mayor, a black speaker of the House of Delegates, and a black attorney general. Scott responded to the rhetoric on Instagram after comedian D.L. Hughley reminded folks that to Republicans, DEI means black. Just so we're clear, DEI means black and Republican. No. Like Brother Jardea said, DEI is the new dog whistle. What it means to these racist whites is ninja, is the N-word. We know what they really want to say, replied Scott. We also know that they don't have the courage to. Nothing they can say or do to me is worse than what they did to my ancestors. My pride in who I am and what I have come from, along with my refusal to give into their shallow worldviews, scares them. Like I said, fear and ignorance. That's what the young mayor said. MAGAs are labeling DEI as didn't earn it. All right. That's a quote from Qasim Rashid. That's pretty wild, because in reality, generating historical wealth through 2 billion acres of stolen land from Native Americans, enslaving black people for 300 years, banning Asian immigration until 1965, and banning women from financial access until 1974, all without paying a single red cent in reparations or restitution, is the living, breathing example of not earning it. You talk about not earning it. You talk about affirmative action. Didn't earn it. Donald Trump. In 2016, the white people who voted against Obama because of his quote-unquote lack of experience turned around and cast ballots for Trump because he was an outsider who wasn't a career politician. In 2020, the same voters who previously suffered from economic anxiety voted for the candidate who presided over the biggest unemployment surge since the Great Depression, and that's the orange disaster. Now, in 2024, the white people concerned over Biden's age will vote for a 77-year-old who can't remember where he put classified documents and, like I said, stinks of unchanged diapers. Nasty bastard. The desire for diversity explains why white evangelical Christians are willing to overlook Trump's adultery, profanity, racism, and stench. It is the only logical reason why fiscal conservatives are willing to ignore how he increased the national debt. America didn't elect Trump because he's racist. Donald Trump became president because America is racist. Nikki Haley. WHGE 95.3 FM. The open eye is getting hot. My children of the sun, this is Patrice Gibbs, your third eye optometrist on the open eye. I want to thank everyone, all my Facebook friends and everyone else, my co-workers and employers and what have you, for the wonderful birthday wishes yesterday. Yeah, yesterday I turned 36, y'all. Yeah, a little gray early. All right. Yesterday was Good Friday. Yes, yesterday was Good Friday. Wasn't good for Jesus, huh? I guess not. On the third day he arose. Let me see. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Wait a minute. Yeah, I counted with my fingers. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That's 2. Tomorrow, Easter. You know, damnedest thing that African spiritual practices in the 18th and 19th century were associated with slave revolts. Enslaved Africans believed that the practices gave them spiritual protection. That was a major factor in the Haitian Revolution. Put that in that Bible, you're free. The colonialists, the colonizers, enacted a series of laws over the years preventing traditional worship. Christian missionaries even went further by declaring all aspects of these traditions as work of the devil. And some of our people are convinced of that. You know, I think Some of the craziest things we hear is that we worship our ancestors. No, we revere our ancestors. Ask them to petition for our spiritual well-being. Thing. And no, we do not believe in many gods. And something, they put that tag on us, but they pray to Jesus and Mary, and the prophets and what have you. It's one of the biggest misconceptions about African spirituality is that there is a belief in multiple gods. It's not so. The truth is there is a belief in one creator. The different energies that are revered are aspects of the divine force which can be found in nature. Examples of these are the Netere, which is Kemetic, the Orishas, which is Yoruba, and Abosan, which is Akan. When it comes down to, like I said, we believe in and we revere different aspects of the divine force. You know, something interesting happened this week that got a lot of black people all excited and what have you. And that was Vladimir Putin, the leader of Russia, opened the vault and gave the world access to the iconic paintings of Christianity from ancient Russia. Now, Russia ain't been a country that long, 1700s or whatever. So these iconic paintings that depict black people, and you got people, yo, we know it. Jesus is black. We know it. Yep, that shows it right there. Shows it right there. Jesus is black. We know it. They knew it too. They knew it. They had the paintings. You know, these paintings from ancient Europe, the Middle Ages, or whatever the time period it was. What that shows is the dominant population of black people in Europe before the coming and the capture of power of the Caucasian in Europe. Because, well, the saying goes that Europe says, thank heaven for 7/11. What happened in 7/11? The Moors conquered Europe in 7/11. Okay? And they ruled for 700 years. And Europe was a much more tolerant place, especially as far as religion and spirituality went. So many of these black icons that are still worshipped by the hierarchies in Christianity in Europe, they were quite common, actually. But here's the thing. Just because you dip the mythology in chocolate don't make it real. All right? The celebration of Easter is not based on the Bible. If you look into its history, though, you will see the true meaning of Easter. It is a tradition based on ancient fertility rites. Consider the following. Name. The Encyclopedia Britannica says the English name Easter is of uncertain origin. The Anglo-Saxon priest Venerable Bede in the 8th century derived it from the Anglo-Saxon spring goddess Esther. Others link it to Astarte, the Phoenician fertility goddess, who had the Babylonian counterpart Ishtar. Hares and rabbits. These are symbols of fertility handed down from the ancient ceremonial symbolism of European and Middle Eastern pagan spring festivals. The new Easter outfit. We like that, the new Easter outfit. I did when I was a kid, yeah. It was considered discourteous and therefore bad luck the Greek, the Scandinavian goddess of spring or Easter, and anything but fresh garb. Sunrise services. These have been linked to rites of ancient sun worshippers performed at the vernal equinox, welcoming the sun and its great power to bring new life to all living things. Now, the Bible warns against worshiping God by following traditions or customs that displease him. 2 Corinthians states, separate yourselves, says Jehovah, and quit touching the unclean thing. Easter is a pagan holiday that those who want to please God should avoid. So if the Bible warns against God under traditions like this, against worshiping God under traditions like this, why do Christians still do it? That's one thing I can never understand about religion. When I was in church, it was always preached that things like this should not be done because it celebrates a rabbit and Easter egg hunts. But the following Sunday was preached that Easter is important because it's about the resurrection. How can one please God if they celebrate Easter by having Easter egg hunts and remembering the resurrection? Now, let me get with you on this here. Let me see if I want to go here. Let's see. Hold on for a minute. Yeah. Okay. Martin Luther King was born January 15th, 1929. He died April 4th, 1968. Okay. Was JFK was born in the early 1900s. He died November 22nd, 1963. And I can point out other historical figures. We know what day they died. And that's the day that we recognize and often commemorate their lives. Jesus died on Good Friday. We don't have a date because the date keeps moving. All right, you know, when you write that, write about your life, and you put your name down there and what year the person was born, and then you put that little dash there, and you put the time, the month that they were born, and the month, the date, and what have you. Can't do that with Jesus, because they keep changing when he died. Historical evidence proves that Jesus Christ never existed and was created by Constantine, the Council of Nicaea, the council that created Jesus Christ. It is something later becoming the person worshipped today as Jesus Christ. Started out with Ptolemy the First, who was Alexander the Free, Alexander the Greek's general that he left to govern Egypt. Okay. And what he did was he became the first European pharaoh of Egypt through military force that was led by Alexander the Free. All right. They call him Alexander the Great, the Greek, whatever he was. All right. And don't make a big deal of Greece conquering Egypt. Because by the time the Greeks conquered Egypt, Egypt was a empire well in decline. Well in decline. You have to remember, when they came along, Egypt was already, thousands of years old. Now, when Ptolemy became pharaoh of Egypt, he wanted the Egyptians to consecrate him. Miriam, September. He wanted to be called a god because that was the title all the pharaohs of Egypt were called prior to him. Actually, they were called sons of God. Amenhotep, Ra-Amses, Tutankhamun. They included the universal force, the creator, in their names. And this is what Ptolemy wanted. They weren't with that. Mary Amun Center means beloved of Amun, chosen of Ra. He was not chosen of Ra. He was a Greek, which we know at that time, the Greeks as well as those that came under the influence, the Romans, were some of the most heathen people to walk the planet. Okay? The Romans, as we know, and then the Greeks as well, that the height of eroticism for them was to sodomize a 14-year-old boy. And he want to call himself beloved of Amen, get the hell out of here. When Constantine came along and held the Council of Nicaea, this is where they came up with the divinity of Christ. They had this, it was, who was it? Christus? Yeah, Christus was the nickname for Serapis. All right. Ptolemy's rule was to create a deity that would be worshipped by both Egyptians and Greeks, and he created Serapis, the made-up Greco-Egyptian god. And there was nothing Egyptian about him. And that was invented in the 3rd century. And during and you've heard me mention this before, during the Council of Nicaea, Arius of Libya, born of African descent, had a problem with the Roman Empire teaching the Africans and the people of Rome to worship a statue and celebrating death. Of course, as we talked about before, Arius was considered a heretic. And he was chased out of Rome. Constantine called the council by summoning all the bishops to discredit Arius. Arius told him, we're not actually supposed to believe this crap. You do know that, right? Yeah. That's right. And like I told you, the Passover and Easter actually have nothing to do with the pagan myths of the Bible. What you don't realize, what Christians don't understand, it is a celebration of the sun passing over, the spring equinox, which is considered the new year for many ancient African civilizations. Like I alluded to earlier, if Jesus died on Easter, why does the date change every year? Because it's not the resurrection of the S-O-N, but the S-U-N. It's astrotheology. And I know many of you are going to have a problem with that, but I really don't give a damn. Wake up. WHGE 95.3 FM, the open eye. This hour just flies by. And as we always tell you, destiny determines who enters your life, but you decide who stays. Therefore, value those who value you, and don't treat those as a priority who treat you as an option. Thanks for joining me on The Open Eye. I'm Patrice Gibbs. All right. And as I always tell you, GAS, Global African Supremacy. That's right, brother. Facts over feelings. Global African Supremacy. Because the world was a much better place when the African ruled. Yeah.